So, how many of you were here last Sunday? Would you mind to put your hands up? Okay, that's great. So actually about at least half of you. So if you don't mind, I'll just repeat a little bit that I said at the end there, which was that I'm the Woodford Folk Festival astrologer, and they get me to do 2 talks a year, but always on the 31st of December I do the predictions for the year. And the last Woodford, of course, was in 2019, going over into 2020. And I found my slides, my presentation from then, and I'd just like to read you some of the way I started that particular presentation, talking about 2020. So, So I said, well, welcome everybody. This is going to be the most important year in our whole generation since World War II. And I think we probably have found that to be correct. This is a very significant turning point in humanity's future. By the end of this decade, we'll look back at the 20s and look at it as 2020 as some kind of preliminary year that started a whole new cycle on planet Earth. So don't imagine that, as they keep saying on the television, that don't worry, everything will go back to normal at the end, because it won't. This is the beginning of a new age. And of course that brings wonderful things and dangerous things as well, dangerous possibilities. But that's why it's so important that we understand the importance of these years in how we express ourselves on planet Earth for the next century or so to come. We'll look back at 2019 and the years before it as if it was some kind of old age. And so there are momentous changes in the way that we run our lives right now. And to do that, it requires the breakdown of the old to be able to make room for the new to come in. And so all of us need to be prepared to let go of things that have outserved us, things that no longer are really useful in our lives, and to have that kind of perception where we can go, okay, I'm prepared to let go of old standing patterns in my life so that I can really move forward and embrace the new and keep up with our children, because any of us with children will know that it will be so easy to get lost behind them if we don't really keep up with the technology and with the computers and with the AI and with everything that's happening. So I said in that presentation that we would still be able to find our inner joy as we watched our establishments get shaken up, as our systems of world government would be forced to change, as our international banking systems and our monetary systems might break down, which of course hasn't really happened yet, so don't wait for it. Don't just presume it's not going to happen, because we're still in this period for a little while longer. And that our health systems would get overloaded. Now, that is a contentious debate, and I might go in that a little bit later, because it seems as if actually our hospitals haven't really gone in overload, that the death rate is not any greater than it normally is in an average year. So a little bit of a contentious point. But certainly we are hearing that the health system is overloaded, and that many people around the world would be revolting against the status quo as the public became more aware of what's really going on and became more bold and more aware of what they want. And that is the gift that this cycle gives us, because this cycle is about, all started, why I could predict this is because it was very clear astrologically, and those astrologers amongst us, how many are a little bit at least a casual astrologer here, or follow it a little bit, you'll all be very aware of the Saturn square Pluto that happened. It started, as I predicted in that talk, on the 12th of January 2020. And that is still just about to end, and I'm going to be able to tell you when that exactly ends in the course of this talk, which is a great relief, because that is what has really meant that we've had to have a whole revolution in humanity, really, that Saturn Pluto. So Pluto is really about profound transformation, and that is coming, and we're able to break free of the chains. I'm sorry the videos is not very strong, but hopefully you can see this girl breaking her chains there. So things that don't serve us anymore, including like corporations that maybe are not very ethical, they will find that they come under a lot of challenge and growing challenge now. And only corporations and companies that have an ethical background will really be able to sustain themselves in the long run. That's still on the edge of happening, but I think it's happening. So basically, Pluto allows us to empower ourselves because of that transformational quality and that being forced to let go of the old and allow the new to come in. It helps us really decide. It helps us look more clearly at what we really want, how we're going to define ourselves, what we really want in life, what do we really believe, what are the structures we want to adhere to, and what are the ones we want to let go. And I imagine that most people here are very aware that a lot of this last year has been challenging us to really see where we stand. Are we going to go with the flow and with what the normal media tells us, or are we going to stand alone and stand by what we believe, which can take a lot of strength, particularly when the predominant status quo is telling us all one particular story, and we may, in our inner depths, in our Pluto inner depths, go, hang on, I don't really believe that. So here, just a little bit. So yes, I predicted that on the 12th of January that the Saturn Pluto would kick in. And it was in about January that we really started hearing about COVID in Wuhan. And we started seeing those outrageous pictures of people dropping dead in Wuhan, which was, of course, the first country, the first city in the world to become fully 5G operative, followed by Bergamo in Italy, which I think was about the second area in the world to really get hit also by COVID. And then I also said that there was an aspect at the very end of March that would really set in and activate it for Australia. And it was about then, at the end of March, when it really started to affect us. It had hit already a lot of other countries before us, particularly Italy and China and Great Britain and Brazil. But Australia was a bit late. It was around the end of March. And it was the beginning of April that a lady from ABC Radio in Melbourne rang me up and said, I was at your presentation in Woodford, can you tell me what's going on? And if only I'd known then to look up the Melbourne chart. I had no idea, of course, that Chairman Dan would be taking over in Melbourne. And this relationship was between Pluto and Saturn. And Saturn is really brought up a lot of the struggling against the chains that we've been experiencing, where we had many of us had lack of dollars, lack of money, because our businesses were closed down. Like, how could we possibly have guessed that manifestation, that people would lose their livelihood, that they wouldn't be able to travel, that imports would become incredibly difficult. Many people in Australia have a little bit of an import business, but the cost of containers went up like 5 times or some outrageous amount, and of course took much longer. And that was because containers all over the world got stuck because it was easy to send them out of China with lots of cheap goods that everybody wanted, but nobody could afford to send back goods to China, and containers just got stuck all over the world, and that sent the price right up. So again, Saturn helps us with our discrimination, and like the Pluto energy, it helps us go, okay, I've got all these choices, which ones am I going to choose? How am I going to discriminate? How am I going to focus and concentrate? And so although traditionally it's regarded as this detrimental planet of challenges and difficulties, it does help bring us to our truth and to limit us and help us really focus. So it helps in many ways. We can rule out the unnecessary and the superfluous in our lives. So I just wanted to carry on really from narratives, and this is, we think that our planets all just go around the sun in a normal, whoa, my computer just did something weird. Puya to the rescue. Microsoft error. This is Puya. He's our absolute computer whiz. He's fully trained in Apple and PC. If ever you need anyone to help you, except that he's leaving for a while. I was on, let's just skip that one and do this one, because maybe the video made it freak out. Basically what it's showing is that our sun is racing through the cosmos at hundreds of miles an hour with all the planets going around us, and we're not in this sort of static place at all. But I think that might have... Okay, so... Yeah, okay. Oh, maybe... so this is the astrology chart for Australia, because I wondered, when all of the world has been so hit before us by COVID, how come Australia has been actually in a different sync? We haven't really been aligned with it in any way. We've been much later, and of course we haven't had many deaths actually. Most of the deaths they're talking about are deaths with COVID, not deaths from COVID. Deaths from COVID is about something like 5% of what they're actually claiming the deaths are. So yeah, this was formed, the Australian chart. They say it's the Federation chart. It was done on the 1st of January 1901 in Sydney. And look at this. Anyone who's familiar with charts, this is an extraordinary chart, because you've got almost everything packed together in this small area of the chart, and 7 of them are in Sagittarius, 6 things in Sagittarius and 3 things in Capricorn. And thank goodness that we have just a few things like Pluto and Neptune at the bottom here, and they are opposing all of those things. And so, you know, Pluto, again, as we just said, this planet of transformation is opposing nearly everything about Australia. And so it does mean that it's a place where real change and transformation can happen. We can stand out like an island and be totally separate from the rest of the world and do our own thing and not be so affected. And so actually we've been really blessed here to be in this different way. We've got Mars here squaring quite a few of the things up there. So it's not without its challenges. Maybe I'm easier reading it here. So yes, the Pluto and Neptune, they oppose 5 things, and makes really Australia separate. So a lot of people are going to be asking one basic question, and that is, when does this all end? And how much longer have we got? And does it start getting better? Because we've obviously had very tense Saturn-Pluto couple of years. And why is Australia a little bit different? So that is quite an obscure kind of thing. I wonder how many of you have heard of quindecils. Quindecils are 15-degree aspects and not usually mentioned, but they are the aspect of crisis. And so Australia has been particularly hit because Pluto has been quindecile, or 15 degrees away, from Australia's sun since it became stationary there, so it didn't move for ages, in April 2020. So again, just when Australia started getting hit strongly. And then at the very end of that, Mars also came along and hit Australia as well. So, and also globally, there was a quindecile of 15 degrees from Saturn to, let's see, sorry, it's hard to read my notes in the light. Yes, a quindecile from Saturn in 11 Aquarius to Pluto in 26 Capricorn. So again, that 15 degrees. So I think we can look and say that this quindecile, still Saturn and Pluto, that were the initiators of this whole series of challenges for the world, still goes on. And we still get another... We were hit very hard in January 21 with that quindecile, and then we get another aspect again on the 8th of November, just coming up soon. So looking just to summarize, all of October and November is still very challenging for the world and for Australia. But we really start coming out in December. There's masses of transits, and I would like to go through in detail just for the next couple of months and share those with you. And then finally December quietens down and we really start coming out in January. So it's not that much longer to go, but it's going to be very much a roller coaster for these next couple of months still, as we all probably know. So let's see. So Australia completes this quindecile actually on the 2nd of January 2022. So very easy to remember, just say the 1st of January. When that last bit of that 15 degree aspect between Saturn and Pluto finally moves out. Actually Pluto moves into 26 degrees. And of course Pluto moves so slowly, 248 years to go all the way around. So it can be often like 30 years just in a sign. So to go through, it can take a year to go through 1 degree sometimes. Sometimes it takes just 6 months. So finally, Pluto moving to 26 degrees takes it away from Australia's chart, out of this quindecile, and we should start, everything really should start, not coming back totally to normal, but certainly looking that way. Some things won't come back to normal as in the way we expect. And then for the whole planet, everything should really finally come good on the easy number to remember again, the 22nd of the 2nd, 2022. So the 2nd of February, I think we'll see globally. Australia comes out a month earlier than a lot of places, but the rest of the globe will come out quicker. So yes, here's a little, just a close-up. Only recently did we get to fly in close to Pluto, and here it is, it's very close. And so Pluto moved into Capricorn in 2008, and it stays there for 15 years on this occasion, a little bit quicker. And it's been stuck in this Capricorn, which is the status quo, the government, the structures, the systems in place, conservatism, and it's been stuck in that ever since 2008. But finally we start to break out and come through to Aquarius, and in March 2023. But it only goes into Aquarius for a 2.5 month section. But watch out then, let's watch in March and April, because we'll get a taste of what that age of Aquarius finally we're getting to. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. We're getting there, and we finally get there, easy date to remember again, on the 21st of January 2024. So in 23, we get a 2.5 month taste of what the future, the next, whatever it is, 18 years, I'll guess it is in Aquarius. I think it's about that. And we'll get a taste, and then we really go into it on that 21st of January 2024. And then we will finally kick this outmoded Capricorn. And I think we will be able to start seeing new government structures come in, much more equality for the people. Aquarius is much less rigid. It's much more about humanity as a whole. How can we have equality for everyone? It's about community, how we can live together, how we can share our resources. We get rid of the billionaires and their 1%. They'll all be finally forced to pay their fair due of tax. And workers' rights will be strong. We should be able to get the trade unions back and stronger again. They seem to have faded out. Like, a lot of really good things will come in when we start getting to that Aquarian age. And of course this is just a picture that demonstrates how intense Pluto is. That gives you an idea of how it runs in our lives. There's a moth in there just going to catalyze into a butterfly. And so the other thing that happens when Aquarius comes in is that we get major breakthroughs in science and technology. And we can really start manifesting some of the ideas that we had in this period, where it's so important that we actually hold the vision clearly of what we want. Because unless we can imagine it, we can't really bring it into fruition. So, as I'll mention later, the Neptunian part of our lives, that really helps us bring our ideology and our vision for humanity and into reality. But we can expect with that Aquarian thing a whole social and technological revolution, really. And one of the things that may well happen is that we dredge up all the corruption and the lies that have been going on with the media and with science, and it brings it to the surface. So you're probably all aware, if you ever jump channels or to the TV on a particular day, a sentence will be announced, and all the television stations throughout the Western world, if you look what they're saying on, CNN or the ABC or the BBC, they all say the same sentence on the same day. They're all being fed by the 0.0001% of the shadow government behind the ones that we see. And they are being told exactly what to say. And so these huge lies, deceptions are being told that everyone believes all over the world at the same time. And with the Aquarian energy, that will all come out and come out in the wash. It'll all be revealed, and that will be quite interesting. Now, on the dark side of Pluto in Aquarius, it will mean that if there are any wars, and let's face it, America is in eternal war, the whole economy runs off being a warmonger, and so it will continue. It's come out of Afghanistan, but only so that it can go somewhere else. And its whole economy depends on it. And so with Aquarius, because of the whole development of technology and AI, we'll start seeing wars fought in a removed way. They'll be fought by AI, using drones, using robots. They'll be fought from their computer screens in some far-off country. They won't even need to touch particularly American soil. And they'll also be using biotech and our DNA. And so these are this is just the misuse of the power that can happen. So we have to be very strong in our vision that we protect our beloved societies from becoming some kind of dystopian society that's run by algorithms. because we all know the algorithms are definitely becoming more and more important. You go on your computer and suddenly it asks you, oh, you'd like to buy a tent. Oh, I don't think I even searched online that I wanted a tent. Like, the algorithms are becoming very clever and a bit of a concern. Here's another picture of what Pluto can look like. So, on the positive side, we get a lot of development in open course technology, and we could get a decentralized internet. That's beginning to happen. Like, we were all on WhatsApp, but then we realized that, oh, actually Facebook owns WhatsApp. So now we've all gone on to Signal, and we're going to get more and more Telegram and Signal, and more decentralized internet, so that even if they tried to get it down, like, more and more they're controlling our internet content. We're all very aware of how you get kicked off Facebook if you say something that the powers that be don't agree with. But centralization will happen, and it will become increasingly impossible to really shut us down. And so we can all communicate with each other through that. I hope lots of you are on. From last Sunday, we have something called Unite the Community now. Is it on WhatsApp or is it on Telegram? Thank you. And there's 1,400 people on that now. So, this is very much the Aquarian age coming. We never would have done that in the years of Capricorn. But now we can really unite with each other in these alternative ways. And a message goes out, okay, the cherry pickers at the 5G tower in Mullumbimby, everybody, let's come. And we can get hundreds of us there, very early in the morning. Seeing as how they've been coming at 5:30 on Sunday mornings to put the last two up, we need to be aware that we may be called at quick notice. Okay, now this chart. This is the chart that I was speaking about, showing the end of all of this, the very final end. So although Australia is ending in January and the rest of the world's ending March, April, we don't really end until we get this Pluto finally coming into Aquarius. And this is the chart for it.
2024.
Yes, sorry, did I say it's 21st of January 2024. Thanks, Sarada. So it's pretty interesting again, because this whole period's been this Pluto-Saturn thing. Well, here we've got Pluto moves into 0 degrees. That's why we get the age of Aquarius. And right next to it, in 0 degrees, is the sun. What's the chance of that? That's just like, it's like 360 to 1 that would happen. So I feel like that's extra auspicious and gives me goosebumps, because I go, okay, they really are going to come out of this in a beautiful way with the sun conjunct Pluto in the 0 degrees of Aquarius. And then that is being set off beautifully by the moon, so we'll be able to be in our feelings and our emotions on that day and really appreciate it. And then we've got Chiron right next to the North Node in Aries on the ascendant. So that's really like, we're all able to heal ourselves. Like in a really, the ascendant is really the way we perceive ourselves, the way we act in society, the way people see us, our outer being. And our North Node is like our Dharma, our path, the way we're destined to go, really the beneficial side of our lives. And then we get Chiron, the planet of healing. Sometimes it can be the wounded healer if it's in difficult position. But this is in a beautiful position all together. So it's like, wow, we get to this age of Aquarius, and not only are we all in our heart and being able to feel it and feeling the power of the sun transforming Pluto, but we can all get healed as well at the same time. So it's a pretty juicy chart. And then we've got Saturn at the head of the arrow point. This is where the geometry comes in. If you, just as a layperson, if you look at this astrology chart, you go, well, what does it look like? It kind of looks like an arrowhead. And the point of that arrowhead is here, and it's Saturn. So again, it means, and we can bring in the beautiful side of Saturn, where it helps give us form and helps us really realize and accomplish and achieve things. And so yeah, I feel like it's pretty hopeful. After a couple of years of, it doesn't really get more challenging than what we've had with the Saturn-Pluto. So we get to breakthroughs in science. And I'd like to just suggest there'll be no more Big Bang Theory. That will go out with a bang. That seems like some sort of antiquated idea to me. I don't know what the alternative is, but I bet you there are some people here that do. And the scientists will come round to it. And there'll be no more this sort of crazy dark matter and dark energy, which is 96% of everything, and they don't know what it is, so they just call it dark. They'll discover what it is. And things like plasma physics will come in, and a new way of perceiving consciousness. And it should be able to totally shift the way we see reality and provide solutions that we can't even imagine at the moment. Because exponentially, everything is changing very quickly. And when that Aquarian energy comes in, it will be even quicker. So for example, physics at the moment, I don't know how physicians handle it, but physics at the moment believes that we are living in a system of finite energy that is entropic, a dying system that's finite. I mean, hello? But that's the standard what they believe. So, obviously we're at the end of Capricorn, we're coming out of that now, because, we've got people like Nassim Haramein. I'm Nassim's Australian emissary, that I haven't done much for a while, but it did get me really keen on understanding as much as I could physics for a while there. And so, obviously we have and so then we think everything's dying. We don't even think animals, or we don't think rocks, and we don't think trees and plants are alive. We think everything's just kind of, we don't think that it's got a living being inside it, that it's got an essence, that it's got feelings, that it, so once we shift that form of thought, we should be able to shift everything. I noticed England recently actually passed something in Parliament giving animals some kind of moral right to be treated well. Imagine they have to pass a law to give up, So they're a bit behind, but it will all start changing exponentially quickly as we come to this 2024 January. So this slide is interesting. It's just a good example because it's basically showing that it's contact lenses coming in that provide augmented reality. They're made with your prescription and your vision correction, and it's basically discrete computing. So as you're talking to someone from China, it's directly translating for you through your contact lens as you speak, so that you can understand the person speaking a foreign language. It's called invisible computing. And when you close your eyes, the computer screen is still there, and it will be able to connect to your mobile phone, and it will be able to give added information. For example, you might want to know your heart rate, or how fast you just ran, or all these things. Already we have those watches where you get a lot of information, but imagine it's going to get incredibly more subtle. Now, I don't know people of my age will really go for that, but you bet people at Pooja's age will. He'd lap it up. So, and then our kids, they're just going to, we're going to have to try and keep up. Then the question is, though, another controversial issue, I hope you don't mind me going into this, but the whole thing about why we don't want the 5G towers is because it's giving out a frequency which is so, I'm not really the best to explain this, but a frequency that could easily be, and maybe already, killing a lot of our insects, giving our bees, not allowing our birds to feel how they fly around the universe properly, around the world properly. And Then the other aspect that I just became aware of the other day was actually when I saw my dentist. And I was like, well, I think I'd really like a ceramic implant rather than a titanium one. But, you know, I know that's kind of hard to find. And he said, yeah, you do, because when they turn on the 5G towers, all the metal in your body is going to start heating up. I was like, oh, great. I'm glad you told me that, because just in time to get my ceramic implant rather than my... So, you know, and then there's a whole other side I just heard too, which gets a little bit more out there, which is that in the injections we're getting, there is an element called graphene oxide that is actually, it holds a certain frequency. Narrative is saying, well, that seems like a very harmless substance, but it's an adjunct. It helps the other things flow through it. And so it actually has a certain frequency. And that will tune in with the frequency from the 5G towers. And so they will be able to, you know, read us in some way, read our vibrational frequency. And then that graphene oxide apparently is even in really small amounts in the blue masks we wear. So if you've got your own mask that's made with normal fabric, better to wear them. And that also, of course, in the PCR test, and there's also elements of graphene oxide that they're doing their best to get this graphene oxide into us. And of course, all of you may be aware that, of course, you know, in Israel, it's not enough. The most highly vaccinated country in the world, with at least 80 or 90% vaccinated, where they're having massive outbreaks of COVID still. It hasn't stopped it at all. It's one of the most heavily, you're getting quite sick. That the graphene oxide is actually in everything. It's in the PCR tests, it's in the vaccination, it's in everything to do with this. And a bit later I'm going to come to why I think this, the bottom line of why I think all that's happening. So when we look at Pluto coming into Aquarius, it's really interesting to look back through history and see what happened the last times Pluto was in Aquarius. It doesn't happen very often. So in 1532 was the second to last one, and Henry VIII ended Catholicism in Britain. Pretty major thing that influenced Australia even. You know, we'd all would have been Catholic. And of course the controls of the Catholic Church. You may have been hearing on ABC radio yesterday or the day before, they were saying how there's a big meeting of the Catholic bishops and how they're all extremely aware of the changes that really are necessary but may not well be allowed again. There's been so much controversy in the Catholic Church. So thank you, Henry VIII. He only did it because he loved a lady who wasn't Catholic, but still. And then the other thing that happened then in 1532 was Copernicus came up with the heliocentric theory of the solar system. So finally the Earth went round the sun instead of the sun going round the Earth. And incredibly important breakthrough again, that again must have shifted our perspective of reality. You know, we must have thought we were the kings of everything, and suddenly we were just a dot in the universe. And another thing that happened was in France, where John Calvin started the Protestant Reformation. So again, these major changes in the way we think, in our belief systems. So if you think how major those things were, and think how major what's going on now is going to look like, you know, when we look back in another 50 or 100 years. And then the last one was from 1776 to 1779. Anyone think what really comes to mind have happened in 1776, 1778? American independence, yes. And really that was part of the Great Enlightenment, it was called, where suddenly the individual was valued. Before that, I think it was really just, you know, a kind of herd ideology. and suddenly the individual became important. And the American independence, of course, was not just that they arrived in America, it was the fact that they were all escaping the Capricornian situation that had been going on in England, where the status quo was becoming more and more dominant and controlling, and the taxes were getting higher, and the whole religious thing was becoming, stifling. And so they broke away and they said, okay, we're out of here, where can we go? Okay, let's go to America. And so they had a whole new start in America. And it really was a breakthrough, again, from that Capricornian age of some kind of severity, really, and conservatism. And then the other thing that happened then was the French Revolution. French are great at their revolutions, and thank God they're still great at their revolutions. And also the very beginning of the Industrial Revolution. So very major. And they must have thought that it was just a small thing. But the first cooperative workshop in Birmingham, England, where all those poor workers out there slogging away in Birmingham, let's all work together then and combine our power, And so that was very influential. That just started a whole new wave of how industry could work in Britain. So it really was a breakthrough. And then the last thing that happened that I thought was notable was the first vaccine was invented, and it was the vaccine of smallpox. And of course, if any of you have seen Woody's vaccine video, it's very interesting to see through the ages the amount of fighting against vaccines that's gone on. It's not just now, it's like, with smallpox vaccines and all these different vaccines, there's always been massive amount of society going, no, we don't want vaccines, thanks. People keep referring back to, but look at the polio vaccine, it was so helpful. But actually, if you look at the graph of how the polio vaccine worked, it had gone right up and there was a lot of polio happening, but it had gone right down already. The graph was almost down back to normal again when they brought the vaccine in. So then they said, the vaccine ended polio, but actually polio was ending on its own, so misinformation again, Pluto in Capricorn. So, with the children, so all the kids that were born between 2008 and 2024, so kids that are still haven't been born yet, in that 15-year cycle, are going to be born with Pluto in Capricorn. And so how does that manifest? Well, it makes them very practical and caring of all matters to do with politics, of business, of career. They may wish to become free from existing authority or a system of government, and probably free from our present monetary system that favours the rich and is extremely unrealistic as a system to support the people. So, and then just thought it was quite nice to see just the difference of how we were born when we were born in Pluto, just because it is like the most important planet of all the others. As we go closer and closer to the Earth, like, for example, if you look at a Venus transit, it only lasts a couple of days, so it's not really ever substantial. And then, even Mars, a Mars transit will last a week. A Saturn transit will last a couple of weeks, but it will go, 3 times in the year, and so it starts getting more important. And then as you get to the outer planets, you start getting, like this Pluto-Saturn transit we've had, which basically kind of goes on for over a year. And so when you're born, Pluto in Cancer, 1914 to 1939. Instinctive and protective. You protect your home and country, you're fine to go out to the war and fight. In Leo, 39 to 57. Exalted in its own sign, so it's very strong, impressive and creative. We make love and not war. We're the hippies. I'm in that lot. We refuse to comply with a society that's not in harmony with the best of our interests. So so we all hit our peak in the late 60s when we had that was a Pluto Uranus when we all really were hippie-dum. That was a great time. In Virgo, 58 to 72, analytical and critical, work, health and service, information about love, trailblazers who began questioning the system, and Libra, it's not quite showing it all on that slide, diplomatic and harmonious, partnerships and relationships are the most important thing, and we start to use our texting a lot and using computers. And then Pluto in Scorpio, 83 to 95, intense and secretive, transformational, and deeply spiritual beings. So any of you who've got kids in that period, those Pluto and Scorpio kids, they've got a lot of power, they can shift stuff. And then Sagittarius, 95 to 2008, free and tolerant, philosophical and rebellious. They seek action, they understand the world in great depth. They're the philosophers, really. And then Capricorn, we're still in until 2024, 16-year cycle. Prudent and reserved, create changes in religion, money and politics, achieve more now than we have previously. And Pluto and Capricorn, huge changes are upon us. Reforms in politics and governing methods, the reversal of globalization. Now we hope, we're not quite seeing that yet, but I feel like they won't succeed. The globalists will not succeed. Not when we hit Aquarius, so. Genetic technologies and health crises comes in Capricorn. They do put the health crises in there. And new energies and new lifestyles. Now we're on to Neptune. Neptune's in Pisces and 2012 to 2025. So again, the Neptune thing's going to change just, not long after the Pluto. And so it's in Pisces, and it's really our inspiration and our imagination. And like in 1846, Karl Marx came up with the Communist Manifesto then, which, in its own time was very inspirational and standing up for the people and people's rights and doing what it could. So this year and next we go from Pisces 18 to 25 degrees, and so any of you who may be in those degrees of sun, or if you know your charts well enough, if you've got anything in those degrees, you very much get affected. In fact, any of you who have your sun in any of the mutable signs, Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, or Sag, and if they're between 18 and 25 degrees, then the Neptune really influences you and make it very strong in these years. And you may be very, what's the smell? It's not something technological burning, is it? Right? That would surprise me at the moment, God. We should see the astrology for today. It's like, oh God. Yeah. I'm coming to it. Anyway, so it's really easy to surrender and go with the flow. And you may find that you can really be in touch with your dreams a lot more. Sometimes you may have whole months where you don't really remember your dreams, but in these times you will. And your dreams can be very revealing and give you clues to, in your waking day, you're not quite sure what you should be doing, but then you wake up from a dream and go, oh, okay, yeah, I should be doing that, and so you can really get guidance from your dreams in this period. So do appreciate that. Do accept your dreams if you feel like they might be giving you a message. Trust your intuition and go with the flow. So it makes your spiritual life much stronger too. And you really start looking at that time. Am I really fulfilled inside myself? Am I really following my spiritual path? Am I doing everything that I could be doing? If I keep saying I'd like to meditate, am I doing it? Am I sitting down even just, for those few minutes a day? Am I doing something that serves my inner being? It's so important for all of you guys in those mutable signs, in those degrees this year, basically. And so you need to listen. Even if you wake up and you go, well, that isn't logical or rational, or why am I thinking that? Just trust your feeling. If you feel it, at that time, with those aspects, it's almost certainly true. And so the last time the Neptune was in Pisces, there was a lot of compassion for the human condition. And spiritualism and seances were all the mode. Even Queen Victoria was doing seances. So, that was just that period then when, you're looking at the subtle side of life, the getting messages from the dead and through your Ouija board. Yeah, I think we've all done it at some point or other. And it's a time when, and then we have Saturn squaring Neptune, and that's a time when you can actually bring reality to your ideals. You can make them manifest. You can get a strong manifestation of what you want to do and make it happen. And that's from the fifth Neptune in Pisces, yeah. So hang on. Brings concrete reality to our ideals. So onto Uranus. Neptune, by the way, takes 165 years to go around once. So it's, what's that divided by 12? Something like 15 years each planet, each sign. Now Uranus moves faster, 84 years to go a full cycle, so that's about 7 years in a sign. And it's very influential on generational patterns. And so when you look at the difference between you and your younger brother or sister, or your older brother or sister, if they're in a different Uranus, that makes the difference. So Uranus really seems to stand as the generational differences between us, just on a small scale. So it's about independence, innovation, sudden and unexpected changes, freedom and originality, surprises, awakening, individuality, pure genius, radical and unconventional thinking, and new discoveries. It's about electricity, technology, and computers. So when Uranus is strong, we demand liberation. There is rebellion and disruption, and we like to destroy structures. And revolutionary events happen that help to upset established structures. So you get a lot of innovations happening as well. Uranus is strange. It's the only planet that's sideways. It actually hangs at 98 degrees. And it has 27-year-long summers and 27-year-long winters and 5 moons. And it's in Taurus all the way through to 2022. So it's coming out fairly soon. And then it will go into Aries. Now, it's actually its detriment in Taurus. It's not the best place for it. But Taurus rules money. And so, again, you can have all these unusual and unique things happening with the money situation. And I'd say cryptocurrencies are one of the main ideologies that's come out of this Uranus in Taurus. And so it has been a bit of a roller coaster, but it's right back up to over 50,000 US again at the moment. And so if you like me and you bought a couple when they were 2,000 and it's now 50,000, that was a good buy. So you had to trust, you had to jump in, because Uranus is so unpredictable. You have no idea where it's going to go. It may even still get banned. Obviously China's restricted in some ways, and although at the same, I don't think it will be. I think they'll find it too hard to control it. El Salvador has just made cryptocurrency one of its proper legal currencies. So that's a great sign. And there's 2 countries in the Middle East, Dubai and somewhere else, that also are readily taking it. It's revolutionary authenticity and destabilizing. And so if you are in any of the fixed signs, which are Leo, Taurus, Scorpio, and what's the fourth one? And then you will find that if you are in between 11 and 18 degrees, then you are going to be also extremely influenced in this coming year, 2022. From now on, really, you're going to be really influenced. Because now it's in 11 degrees, and at the end of 2022, it's in 18 degrees. So if you've got if you've got your sun sign or any major sign in any of those degrees, you're going to get very influenced, and you're going to be very much an influencer. Like, you will be part of this revolution. You're probably out there in some way, helping. Maybe you're going around shops giving signs saying, I'm an essential business. Or maybe you're just talking to your friends and saying, look, this is what's really going on. Have you seen this latest video from so-and-so showing that all the coronavirus things were patented in 2008? You will be a bit of a rebel rouser, and you won't be sitting by and being complacent. If you have any of those, if you're in any of those degrees, you're going to be out there talking about it. And I do have one of those degrees, so here I am talking about it. Yeah. So I just watched my dad go through his Uranus return. We've all heard of Saturn returns. You get them at 29 and 58. Or thereabouts. It varies a little bit depending on the cycle of that planet at the time. But with Uranus, you get Uranus return at 84. And you can have a whole new start in life. Like my mum had died, and my dad got a whole new lover at 84. And it's just like a whole new life. It was like, he had this, book in his drawer on how to make love again. All these things. He was just like, had this whole new life. It was super exciting to see him. I was getting goosebumps thinking of him. It was like this new man again. So, you've got to make sure you live over 84. So, this Uranus in Taurus, it's very much a kind of COVID and crypto, my two keywords for Uranus and Taurus. It is in harmony with the Pluto in Capricorn, because Taurus and Capricorn are both earth signs. But Uranus is retrograde at the moment, and so it's best to wait if you're trying to change anything or get some new project, some new business idea underway, or some new website, or trying to innovate something new. It's really best to wait until the 18th of January 2022 when Uranus finally gets out of retrograde, because things are just really slow down. They kind of get stuck when the major planets are in retrograde. So do all your prep work, but you might want to wait to launch, so you can launch with a bang. It's not that far away, 18th of January. And that's also going to help with our whole coming out of COVID too. When Uranus, we'll be able to move forward. As it is, we do one step forward, one step back. None of us quite sure what regulation we're supposed to be following when and where, and so it'll all get a lot clearer in then. So don't be too impulsive yet. Wait a little while. And then it'll be even better when Jupiter sextile Uranus on the 18th of February next year and through the whole of March, when then we'll be able to be much more efficient, enthusiastic, optimistic. So we start getting better mid-January, and then mid-February even better again. And a couple of things that just happened that are very representative of this Uranus are $230 billion just got saved by Australians this year due to being in lockdown. So as soon as Uranus starts coming out at the beginning of the year, there's going to be this massive kind of spending spree, probably. Australians have saved $230 billion. And also, 50 million has just been won in a class action against Woolworths, when all their workers were being underpaid. You might have heard of that. Well, finally that came through. And so they're all, it's 50 million divided between all Woolworths workers in Australia. but I think they come out with something like 2,500 each. I'm sure they're quite happy about it. And then 40, oh yes, and then in corporations, normally shareholders don't bother going to shareholding meetings of corporations, and only about 10% of people go and vote. But because we're online, about 40% of people are voting. And that brings in much more your average person who, so apparently they're all voting, saying that corporations have to support climate change more. So that's a very Uranian thing, and that's one of the advantages of the internet. One thing that could happen when Uranus goes into Aries is that they're going to try and bring in a digital currency, a world digital currency, and I don't know if that's positive at all because that's all part of the world order controlling us, but I don't know. It may be choiceless.
When is that, Pratima?
Well, I'm suggesting that it could be as early as February next year, or January or February next year. Actually, I heard that separate from the astrology. Somebody said that they thought that they were going to try and bring in digital currency in January, and I was like, so soon? Like, really? But, so maybe it's true. So, Liz says it'll crash first. Yeah. We are due, so because this Saturn-Pluto thing, I've been expecting for quite a few years now, because of Saturn-Pluto, that we'd have a crash in our economic system. So the fact that it hasn't happened yet, we've still got those few years to go. I would think it is very possible. And so again, like protecting your money, putting it in different eggs in different baskets, investing in the tools you want, having some crypto, having some gold, some silver. Somebody suggested to me the other day, I thought it was a great idea, you can open these multi-currency accounts in HSBC in Southport, and then you could put some money in Swiss money. What's the currency? Yes, or in Swedish currency, like two countries that stay pretty consistent. Did you hear that Sweden, Denmark, Iceland and maybe Finland have all just banned anybody under 30 getting a COVID shot? Too dangerous, too many blood problems. So yeah, we should follow Sweden and the Scandinavian countries all the time because they always seem to be ahead of the 8 ball. So that's not a bad idea, but anyway, I would seriously recommend you diverse your currencies. Don't just have it in the bank. Do other things with it. It's not too late to buy Ethereum, it's still pretty cheap. Even if you buy like a tenth of a Bitcoin, many people are saying it's going to go right up to 100,000 for a Bitcoin. And so you can buy tiny proportions of them. You can buy 0.1% of a Bitcoin. It's like get your finger in that, get started, do something with it, and work out how many things, what things you need. Getting a new car, you're all aware that there's a massive shortage of microchips for cars. There are 30,000 or more cars in America sitting in parking lots because they're waiting for their chips, because every car takes 130 chips these days, and there's only Taiwan really that manufactures them, which is why, of course, China's very interested in Taiwan. And just did a massive flyover that freaked the world out. So anything you want to buy, if you're thinking of buying a new car for a while, then I would suggest you do it. Don't wait much longer because there won't be the chips to run them. So official kind of things like lockdowns will also be helped to come to an end when Mercury goes into Aquarius. And that's also on the 18th of Feb. The last thing was also 18th of Feb, so here's another date to remember, guys. So that should bring us some more concrete results. And Aquarius represents people, community, the 11th house, social environment, and the feeling of evolution. I kind of said that already. So anyone that was born between 95 and 2003 already has Uranus in Aquarius. And they will be far more daring when it comes to fighting for social justice. So that's our 18 to 26-year-olds. Anyone got an 18 to 26-year-old? Yeah. So they are going to actually really serve society in a big way. They're already the Aquarians. And this Uranus energy of being able to make breakthroughs and be on the cutting edge and understand things that maybe mum can't really understand, you know. So it's like, I think it's worth doing your best to try and keep up with them. But they are the ones that are really going to help with bringing social justice, fairness, equality, you know, more humanitarianism. So good on those Aquarian kids. Okay, so I really wanted to offer the astrology today because there are 4 major planets that are all just coming out of being retrograde, like appearing to move backwards from the position of Earth. They appear as if they're going backwards, and energetically they are very kind of stagnant, and they don't really, their energy doesn't operate very well, and it's like they're on standby. You're kind of on hold, you're waiting, like nothing's really happening. And so today, the 10th, we start coming out of that. And okay, so the first one is Pluto, and it already started going direct, it's called, on the 6th, 4 days ago. And it's in 24 degrees of Capricorn. And so what's needed to be transformed, reformed, or ended actually can really start happening now. You've all got a feel for what Pluto's like by now. So that's already quite a jump forward. And interesting that tomorrow, of course, New South Wales has got all these changes happening. That fits in. So again, though, remembering with Pluto that if you want to gain something, you need to let go of something that no longer serves you. Great time for clearing out your wardrobe. Says Pratima. So be prepared to let go of any kind of complacency. Be prepared to let go of comforts that you may take for granted. And that will allow more transformational energy to sweep you in your life, take you forward, and challenge us to really live what we believe. And then 2 days ago, on the 8th, the Sun, which is in Libra, came next to Mars. And it comes, so the Sun's conjunct Mars in 15 degrees Libra. I will say the aspects because I think there's enough of you here who know some of your... How many people here know some of the degrees that their sun is in or their moon? Just wonder if it's worth me mentioning the... Not very many. I think then I won't mention the degrees because it's a bit... But anyway, so Mars is with the Sun in Libra, and that's for the next 2 weeks. And so that will spice up, you know, Libra is usually so diplomatic and balanced and harmonious, but it actually will initiate a little bit more aggression with the Mars energy there, that you'll be a bit more feisty. And both of them are trying the North Node in Gemini, and then Saturn in Aquarius in a grand trine. So that will help very much as kind of ease through this challenging situation that's coming with the New South Wales now. Like, what's happening tomorrow? Can somebody say what's supposed to happen tomorrow? Medical apartheid. So it's a bit of it is when you hear what's... I don't want to get in too much... Oh, actually, here's a nice chart. Let's read the chart.
The police said they won't enforce it.
Well, yes, that's what we need. God, if the police wouldn't enforce it. How wonderful is that? Here is the chart for the 10th, which is today. And we are right in the peak of everything. So just to show you, you've got the Sun right next to Mars in Libra, and Mercury there as well. Now, Mars is the god of war, and so we can be pretty feisty, and when Mercury's right next to it like that, we can get very outspoken. Some of you may have, I don't know if you came with your partner today, you may have woken up and been a bit argumentative with each other, or you know, like, come on, you're late, and you know, like really actually quite feisty with each other with that Martian energy, and not afraid to speak it either. So, whereas normally you might say, oh no dear, everything's okay. You know, you kind of like, oh, get on. So that's today. And that's good, because you get to speak your truth a bit. And then that is all in a very nice trine aspect to Jupiter in Aquarius. So Jupiter and Saturn are both in Aquarius already. They've been going in and out of Aquarius for a little while. So that's sort of the very beginning of the dawning of Aquarius, with Jupiter and Saturn, you know, medium moving planets. But it really takes Pluto to get in Aquarius before it really shifts. But this is the beginning, so, you know, we're sort of like, oh, like the protest on the border last week was just gorgeous. You know, with the people hugging police and 1,000 people and everything going smoothly. And so we do start to see some good things happening. But meanwhile, Uranus down here in Taurus is squaring Saturn in Aquarius. So that's still, it's the fight between Saturn, stability, the status quo, the police, and Uranus, the revolutionaries, the fighters. And so it's all this month and next month that continues with really like who's winning. Okay, like we're a bit ahead at this protest, but the police just arrested so many people in Melbourne, and you know, so it's like this to and fro of this battle that continues for the next couple of months. We have a nice little saver here of Venus next to our moon in Sag, so you know that's being quite idealistic about our romance and feeling quite loving once we've got over the verbal fight. Pluto is squaring, the red line squaring Mercury there, so again that's also very direct speech, no mincing of the words. And what else? So it's very passionate days. You know, we're really feeling things strongly, and we're going to speak them out. And no compromising. And then that Uranus going Jupiter, feeling outrageously over the top and revolutionary, really. Jupiter on the ascendant, we might have put on our wildest clothes. So expect the unexpected. And here was the couple fighting. Hopefully you didn't argue too much over your beliefs and get into, you know, it's a time when you might easily really get into your neighbour and be rather super judgmental about those shops that are persisting tomorrow. Like, I don't know, we may not be able to go into some shops if we haven't been vaxxed and stuff. And so that could well bring out this mood. This still goes on tomorrow, you know, so there's still that feisty energy of speaking up for ourselves. So all the way to March, we've got these restrictions really going on some level still, even though I'm saying it's more globally till March. I hope in Australia that it'll start fading out January, February, but planetary we still go through till March. And then Mars stays in Libra now right till the end of the month, October the 30th. And we need to try and be as understanding as we can. So the 17th and 18th of October, that's only a week away. And that's Mars conjunct the Sun and square Pluto. Woo! So that's even stronger than today. That's definitely a kind of incendiary situation. And so it makes me wonder if we will see on the global picture something 17th, 18th of October. You know, we just had all these Chinese planes fly right over in the Taiwan airspace, but it's The press was saying, oh, that's an absolute disaster. But actually, Taiwanese sea space goes right near the border of quite close to China. So it wasn't really as bad. It was just a sort of a statement. Meanwhile, England, UK has sent over some kind of air carrier to Taiwan. So I would really watch what's happening with the Taiwan situation. Don't think that America brought its troops out of Afghanistan so they can all rest and be peaceful at home. I don't think so. And anyone here was at the John Pilger lecture that was, Liz and I helped organise John Pilger coming. He spent the whole time talking about the coming war with China. And so we all know that China and Australia haven't been talking to each other for quite a while. And the picture is definitely deteriorating. And so America, it seems like if they start feeling like they're near to their economic collapse, the step that they take is to start a war, and a major war. So, we should be okay here, but I don't know about Darwin. It'd be interesting to do the astrology chart for Darwin and see if they get caught up in something. So watch those dates for something on the international scale that isn't so good. Or maybe on the more local scale, people are saying, oh yes, now that New South Wales has opened up, Byron Bay is going to get flooded with people from Sydney, bringing their little flu with them. So maybe that can happen, and that would be something on a more local, something that's not very good. Sun, Pluto, Mars. Yeah, I don't really know exactly what, but it'd be good to also take care with your driving then, like don't be reckless, you can secure yourself, make sure you've turned off the stove, just 17th, 18th, anything in the home can happen, just take extra care with your driving, and let's at least on a personal level make sure we're safe. 20th of October is full moon, and it's in 27 of Aries, and it's everything I just said about the Sun and Mars, plus the full moon energy. So again, we need to take care. Will it be struggle for domination and control in some way? And but at the same time, we can use that energy. You can use that Mars energy for good too. You've got a lot of energy to get stuff done. So you can actually use it for your business, or you can really work hard that 17th and 18th. You can use it on a personal level as well. It doesn't have to be totally. It's a bit like there's so much like energy in your being, and so you need to use it. Maybe the guys need to go for a 5-mile run. Maybe the women need to get in the garden and really use that energy. Don't just sort of be complacent and sit around, because it can kind of implode and lasers on. Thank you. Yeah. So on the 22nd of October, that all climaxes. So right through from the 17th to the 22nd of October, we've got this pretty incendiary situation. So let's see. We'll look back and see what happened. I'll certainly watch the news on those days to see what happened. Yeah. Say it again?
I think the 22nd of October is the back mandate in Victoria from most industries.
Is the ending of it?
Is the first dose by that date.
Oh, they've got to have their first dose by that. Right, that's interesting. So she's saying that she thinks in Victoria everyone's got to have had their first dose by that 22nd, is it maybe? Yeah. So that's going to bring up a little bit of revolutionary force there. Yeah, one of these days I'm going to go home and do Victoria's or Melbourne's chart, because they're on a different planet again. They're something, thank God we're not there. So here's another interesting thing. So many of you may not have heard of Eris. Eris is the dwarf planet that's just past Pluto. Pluto also got delineated as a dwarf planet. And it's not that small, actually, but Eris is the sister of Mars. So she is the goddess of war. And she enjoyed herself at the end of battles. She used to enjoy walking around the battlefield and looking at all the blood and destruction that happened. She's intense. She's like Carly. Yeah. And so Pluto squares Eris from August the 15th to October the 20th. So again, we're coming back to its sort of last stand in that last 18 to 22 October period. And again, so I think that points at, again, something else a little bit extreme happening.
What does it square?
It's Pluto. Eris square Pluto. Yeah, Pluto square Eris. Yeah, she's the goddess of strife and discord. But she's a feminine warrior, and, you know, she actually fights for her existence in a very uncompromising way. So maybe it also can mean that us women can sort of stand up for our rights and be more forthright and speak our truth, and, you know. But, yeah. So she represents fighting for what we believe in, So again, certainly for us women, she can have a good. Okay, so then by the 27th of October, we get a little break because we get a bit of peace with Venus squaring Neptune. And so actually we finally can get a little bit of peace on just at the end of the month there. But then the 30th of October, we are getting Sun squaring Saturn with a T-square to Uranus. So yeah, difficult again, challenging again in another way. And again, the following week on the 4th of February, Sun opposed Uranus, again in Scorpio, which is kind of like busting us open and demanding freedom and independence. So yeah, I'd say the whole rest of October is pretty intense. Oh, here's a picture of Eris. That's Mars isn't a dwarf planet, but it shows you the size. Here's Earth and here's Eris. And here's Pluto. So she's actually a bit bigger than Pluto, but she's only just been discovered 2005. I wonder who decides what goddess they get named after, because it seems to be important. And then we have another chart. 24th of December. I think I have actually worked out all the things that happen astrologically until then, but it's pretty much continues in the way we've said, with all these really fiery things. And then, and then the last week of November and the first 2 weeks of December, we get a reprieve. We actually get some peaceful times again, where there isn't anything really drastic happening. There's stuff happening, but not like it's going on at the moment. But then we get to the 24th of December. Easy to remember date, day before Christmas. And we have Pluto in Capricorn together with Venus and Mercury. Now, Pluto and Venus together can actually be very strong in relationships. It can have dynamic, intense connections. And again, with Mercury, you'll be able to speak about the passionate love you're feeling, maybe for a partner, but maybe also for a project in some way. And you'll be able to get things together. And they are all trining Uranus. So again, nice breakthroughs, managing to break out of this status quo that we've been in. And then we've got Jupiter opposing the moon. That's also emotionally beautiful, quite strong emotionally. So that's nice for Christmas. That's the exact date, the 24th, but it will go over into Christmas as well. So that should be able to have some enjoyable times over Christmas there. And maybe it does mean we'll be really out of lockdown by then. I'm sure it does. Okay, and then have I got another? No, that's the same chart. Yeah.
November, a difficult date.
was that, Liz?
In the beginning, you said the 8th of November.
Yeah, the 8th of November was definitely a trying period. I forget what it was though now. But that whole first 3 weeks of November are similarly intense. And it only ends like around the 23rd of November. Oh no, it wasn't. It was the last 2 weeks of November and the first week of December. Get a bit more calm and peaceful. Okay, so then we get to the 2nd of January 2022, which I mentioned before. And this is really that turning point. It's where Uranus goes direct and where I feel as if Australia will really be coming out of things. So prepare before that for the change you want to see. Be the change you want to be. It's the start of a new cycle. We can get passionate about what we do. Pluto, Mars, Mercury and Venus are all together at that time. And Mars and Venus go into Aquarius. So that builds us towards the Aquarian energy of reform. And it's radical about what we want to regenerate. Yeah, there was just something then, for all of March, April and some of May, Jupiter conjuncts Neptune in Pisces. And the last time that happened, Jupiter, Neptune in Pisces, was 1856. And it was a year when there were massive floods in Europe and in America. I don't know about Australia. So, yeah, and that is our rainy time. So all of March, April and May is the time to be wary of floods and prepare for floods this year in that. You know, some years we don't have floody years, but if you live like in downtown Ballynagel, for example, you might want to order your sandbags ahead of time. So just be prepared for floods. I always remember over the years that Ballynagel always used to flood the first week of March. It was always like 3 days in the beginning of March when we couldn't get the car through. But I'd say this year is definitely going to be one of those years. Now, if you were born in either 1982, 83, or 1947 and 48, then you have Saturn conjunct your Pluto. Don't quite know why I'm saying this at this point but anyway, you have that kind of intense energy in your chart. Very powerful, can be very intense, and it can be a bit chaotic in your life, but it does give you the opportunity of always being able to regularly restructure your whole life. If you have like Saturn, Pluto, like that, your life's always changing, like totally move here, change continent, change job, just quite dramatic. Beginning of August 2022. Now I want to bring in the World Economic Forum, because it's an important time, the beginning of August. It's actually the 31st of July, first few days, and the whole first week of August, but this whole period. And it's a triple conjunction between Mars, war, Uranus, unique originality, and our North Node, which is our Dharma, like the planet's path in life, like where we're supposed to be really moving towards. And the last time it happened, so the North Node is like Rahu in the Indian sidereal system. And it's all in the 19 of Taurus, in case you have, I've got Jupiter in that. In case you've got planets that are around 19th of Taurus, this is going to affect you very strongly. And it certainly lasts for a few weeks. And the last time it happened is actually over 2,000 years ago. We're going right back to early Greece. So it brings in a new era. We can invent and understand quickly. We can change. There is global tension. And unless we're very careful, it can bring in the destruction of our old ways, our natural ways. And it's a kind of consolidation of the new era and new laws and new power structures. Now, I'm sure many of you, if all of you here, are probably aware of the Great Reset and Klaus Schwab, the founder of the Great Reset and the World Economic Forum that wants to bring that in and has been working, well, it meets in Davos every year, and all the most wealthy, the 0.1% all meet in Davos to make their plan for how they want the world to be. And they are extremely powerful. So we have to be careful of what they're saying and what they're wanted. Here's one of Alex Jones, and the little one on the side says, it's absolutely clear. America is an oil company
with an army.
With an army.
George Carlin.
Is it? Okay. So in his own words, Klaus Schwab describes the goals of this model of governance, calling for a swift revamp of all aspects of human affairs. And this is a quote from him. Let's go a little bigger on my screen. To achieve a better outcome, the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our societies and our economies, from education to social contracts and working conditions. Every country, from the US to China, must participate, and every industry from oil and gas to technology must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. So Schwab basically works with the largest of the multinational corporations and institutions, and in this goal of the complete alteration of society. And I think he really is our danger. At its best, the Great Reset may create new ideas and breakthroughs in technology, but at its worst, it could be the beginning of an attempt at dehumanizing the world and creating social credit scores, so like they have in China. You know, there's already 250 million people in China that cannot get on public transport and are severely limited because of the beliefs they had. And I suspect everyone in this group would count.
Hitchhiking. Yeah.
So we'll have to go back to hitchhiking, that's right. But will they pick us up because they know from our clothes we haven't been vaxxed, you know? So, yeah. So it is it's dangerous. And maybe, you know, I don't know when Davos meets next, but we certainly have to watch these guys, and we have to be aware of what they are planning, because, you know, in England, there's 2 cameras for every person. And in China, it's phenomenal, the amount of camera surveillance that's going on. And, you know, there's even a camera in Byron, but none in Mulham yet. And I'm sure we are quite good with our slingshots if Mulham does get one. So, yeah, and then also they start encouraging neighbours to inform on their friends. You know, you get that descent of... it already was happening in Victoria, wasn't it? They were saying, you know, neighbours to tell if they see people going out, they shouldn't be going out, to inform on them. So we don't want that to be. And then, of course, got this sentence that somebody wrote in the World Economic Forum: no one will own anything and they'll all be happy. And that's about the government owning everything, including your property, and then you renting it from them. You know, so that's why the right wing is sort of saying that it's communistic, because, you know, I don't really see it like that, but that's what they're saying. So basically they sort of start going towards a kind of transhumanism where human and AI merge. These kids. So it seems to me that COVID was really the greatest plan ever. It forces all the lower and middle class people who own shops to close. And so meanwhile, while, you know, the 2 people can't go into a little mom and pop shop on the corner, meanwhile 100 people are allowed to go into Walmart or, you know, any of the big corporations. they're all allowed to, so we have as many people as want go into corporate shops, and no one can go into a little shop. You know, it just doesn't make sense, because if there's only 2 people in a little shop at once, then what's the problem? You know, so there's some things that really don't make sense. And so it seems like they're working towards this ultimate control of money, so that thousands of families that have now lost their little job and will be continuing to lose until the end of the year, where they just can't keep going, they just haven't got enough customers and so on. So there's people going bankrupt all over the place, and it's a perfect opportunity to bring in a universal basic income, which in a way they're already doing in Australia. Don't worry, you've lost your job, but we'll pay you some money until we stop, and then we don't anymore. And so they will bring in this universal basic income, which means you get paid, you get given enough money to live as long as you comply. So it all, you know, it's all these fingers working together in this very clever conspiracy to get us in the end if they can, but they won't succeed. So interestingly, the chart of the World Economic Forum includes Mars in Taurus, and it's 6 degrees from where Mars, Uranus, and the North Node will meet in August 2022. And they're all very aware of, you know, they all go to these ritualistic meetings and so on. They're very aware of the astrology. So August 2022 is the time to watch out for action from the World Economic Forum. Just a separate note, 2022 is the water tiger, and in Chinese, and he's very yang, he initiates change, he loves taking risks, and he's very powerful. So it also fits with the mood of this next year. The World Economic Forum website describes the 4th Industrial Revolution as, quote, a fundamental change in the way we live, work, and relate to each other. It will merge the biological, physical, and digital worlds. So that's just the kind of change that Uranus and Taurus lends to create. And so Saturn squaring Uranus all of 21 and going through till the end of March 22, where again lots of people can lose their livelihood, and the middle classes get really heavily hit. And again, you know, we're not allowed to have small gatherings where we meet and sing, or have concerts and theatres or weddings, but we can have enormous sports events with thousands and thousands of people who all meet and scream and yell at the top of their voice. I'm sure that a lot of people are beginning to wake up and go, well, hang on, this just doesn't make sense. This was a little bit on the north and south nodes of the moon the last 6 months. So, yeah, the north node is going to move into Gemini, and then we get a more of a positive future. But at the same time, we've got this polarity happening at the moment. Sorry, it's in Gemini at the moment, and the south node is in Sag. So we've got this dichotomy between the forces of truth and honesty, Sagittarius, and its opposite. And so we kind of start feeling like, for the last year and a half, have we been totally lied to? Are all these things real, or are they just totally invented? So, in my eyes, the lies that we have, we're lied about PCR tests. They're not accurate at all. They were never invented to actually be a diagnostic implement. And there's many, many research documents and papers proving that they don't work. They said hospital beds were full when they're not. They say that it's far worse than the normal flu when it's not. They said that it came from bats, which is nonsense. And now, apparently there's like another 25 million people in China. They're all getting told that it all came from Fort Derrick, which is 80 kilometers north of Washington. Which is probably where it did come from, because, you know, they're doing this, what's it called?
Game of function.
Thank you. I was thinking of Game of Thrones. Game of function. 4th stage game of function research. And they were doing it in Fort Derrick and many other places in South Carolina.
Dietrich.
Dietrich, thank you. And And then it got, because they were doing such complicated, trying to create viruses that, and things that would be really, really super serious for people, for mankind's health. So they got banned in America. So what they did was Fauci and his friends took it to Wuhan, and they worked, and it's documented the millions of dollars that that Fauci and his group actually sent to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And so they paid for it to continue there. But of course it's China, and things aren't so tight and aren't so well controlled. And so, it leaked. And actually, China was blaming America, and they're probably right. So, it's just a bit of apparently there is something like, there's research, biotech research like that going on in 22 countries around the world, employing 33,000 people, that's what I read somewhere, and that it's just massive. So it's just sure to come out in the end. Then you may all have seen the great video where the guy who's in charge of patents in America, or very high up in the patent industry, revealed how all the different things that the PCR test and the COVID vaccine, they were all patented going back to 2008. So it's all a big conspiracy that's been planned a long time ago. And that it seems now that there are more deaths actually really occurring from the vaccine than from actually COVID. So thank God that Scandinavia stopped people under 30 having it, because it actually accumulates really badly in the ovaries, the bone marrow and the ovaries. And so if the World Economic Forum people are trying to cut down on the world's population, which is I think what they are trying to do, it's a great way to do it, because our young girls will have a very hard time conceiving when we've got this accumulating in their ovaries. So very important that our younger ones, especially those under the age of 12, do not have this vaccine. And then, of course, it's not just the first and second shot. Then, of course, you're going to have your booster shot. Biden already had his. The people in Israel are already having to have their third shot. And then you will need to have 2 shots every year. So it just keeps on going. They're just going to get this stuff into you. They're not going to say, okay, you've had 2 shots, everything, no more, that's it, no more, no need to have anything else. So yes, that's the other really interesting thing that's happening. America is about to have its Pluto return. Pluto goes around every 248 years, and it's 248 years since 1776, when they had their Declaration of Independence. So on the 22nd of February, 2022, interesting because we had quite a bit happening on the 18th of February, so that whole week, 22nd of February, you get Pluto return. So what will that mean in America when you think that it was so important, that breakthrough before when they left England, and they made this great Bill of Rights and so on? What will happen this time when Pluto goes into its return? Will civil war? Total change of the government doesn't function anymore? Somehow, I don't know. Yeah, all sorts of things could happen. Another thing, actually, a sidereal astrologer that is saying that some kind of nuclear accident in America, so around that time. So there's another possibility. So I really don't know what it will be, but let's remember that week, that 18th, 22nd February 2022. Let's watch America very closely then and see what does happen. Could be war with China. That's a possibility. Could be some sort of another bioterrorist kind of attack, some other kind of virus that gets released. I don't know, maybe on the positive side it could be some kind of revolution where good forces come and the people rule. Last time it was for good, wasn't it? Last time that Bill of Rights was fabulous. So, maybe it can be something where the people come to power. Let's hope for that. Oh, the last times that things that England had, you can't really see any further back in America for Pluto returns, but in England you can. So in 1315 they had the Great Famine. In 1555 they had Queen Mary the first female queen, and Queen Elizabeth and what they call the Golden Age, the Elizabethan Golden Age. So that's good. And then in 1801 they had the Industrial Revolution. And also the United Kingdom was formed. So they joined together with Wales, Scotland and Ireland. So that was good. So yeah, that could be a bit of a mixed bag. So let's see what happens. I'd be very interested. Okay, so to conclude, let's ask ourselves, what would we really like to come in the near future? With Neptune being important, it's very important that we pay attention to exactly what we want, what we can imagine, what we visualize. We start putting that out. Like even, in our dreaming, we can dream it into existence. We can put out the positive, and we can name a few of our wishes and then hold them clearly in our mind's eye. And I think that really works when enough of us hold the same inspiration. So we can reclaim our lives through the soil, through our souls, through society. We can buy local, go small. We can know that what we have already is beautiful. We live in the most beautiful area in the world. And with our Sunday meetings, we have this huge unification of our community happening. We have protect the community, sing the community, inform the community, unite the community. You can get on all of those, and there's so much information coming out. And everyone says, okay, on Saturday we're all getting together at this address, come and learn how to plant seedlings. Or there's other people who are getting together large areas of land so we could become self-sufficient, particularly in this area. We could set up a super barter system. We could set up our own currency. So if we do go into some kind of digital currency, maybe we have the Mullumbimby, unit of money. So, and I think we're strong enough here, and we actually are a kind of flag for the world. We are one of the most alternative areas in the whole world. There's also, there's Maui, there's the Big Island, there's Portugal, there's Salt Spring Island in Canada. There are definitely other places on the planet, but I live here because I believe that this is the most alternative place, and that there's the most of us together, and that we're in the most beautiful place. So we mustn't forget that. And look, we haven't even been touched by COVID, actually, really. I mean, no one's had COVID. There's been some guy from Sydney and somebody who flew into Ballina once, and that's it. We haven't been touched with COVID. That's because we don't believe in it. We don't believe in the PCR test.
You can only get it from television, that's why.
Yeah, you can. Oh, that's right. You only catch it from television, exactly. So we have been so free of it. And that is an expression of our mental freedom and of our belief system and how we look at reality. And so we are so lucky and blessed here. And so while we look astrologically at the rest of the world kind of going into chaos, we remain relatively untouched. I mean, nothing in my life changed. I don't go to the pub. I don't go to restaurants. I don't go to Woolies. I don't know. And we still have all our music singings and our bhajans and our parties and, everything goes on. So I just don't believe it. So there you go. And I think my very last slide just says, let's imagine what the new system, the post-capitalism, looks like. Cooperation, not competition. A new economy, new political system that serves everyone, not just the 1%. A new technology that works through biomimicry, which is learning from nature rather than trying to dominate her. A world in which there is enough abundance to feed and house everyone on the planet. And finally, let's rethink who we are in our new society. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. I know that was a lot of information to take in. So we've got a few dates to remember. Let's go for
17th,
24th of October. The
17th, 18th is the pressure time.
yes, thank
The
you.
22nd.
Yeah, and then the 24th of December could be pretty good. And then we've got the 1st and 2nd of January where we really break through. I know that 18th to 22nd of Feb where also more breakthroughs really coming out by end of March, April for everyone all over the place. And then 21st of January 2024 when we go into Aquarius.